Good evening, good evening, good
Good
evening.
evening.
Welcome. How is everybody tonight? Welcome to Marital
Marital
Motivation
motivation
with
with the
the
Mackies.
Mackies. It is episode 4, and we are going to talk about trust today. We have been having an awesome day today, an awesome week, and we just want to, talk about trust. In the past, we've talked about communication. We've had a couple episodes about that. And I feel like trust is an extremely important ingredient in the soup or the dish that we call marriage.
Absolutely. So I think, we've talked about, like you said, communication. And in communicating, there has to be a level of trust that's built up in the relationship. So I agree.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started today. A couple things I had. I wanted to start with what basically is, what is your definition of trust? Because I feel like every individual goes through different experiences in their lives, from their upbringing, their childhood, social status, or whatever. And all of those things feed into every definition in our lives.
Absolutely.
And so I think that in order to understand each other and trust each other, you actually have to know what the other person defines trust as. So I'll ask you, honey, darling, what's your definition of trust?
Well, before I give that, I'm gonna ask you all to share because that's what I'm doing now.
Oh,
If you will take time to share this on your Facebook page, your social media. I'll get that word out.
you get it out.
If you would share it, we would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I am sharing as soon as I can find
Mm-mm. Well,
it.
while
Okay.
she's scrolling through her phone, I will give you my definition of trust. Because we were having dinner, I believe it was last week, and we were talking about, okay, what are we going to talk about? And I had come up with trust a couple weeks prior. And so she says, honey, so what is your definition of trust? And
Because it's different than mine,
absolutely,
slightly.
oh, absolutely. So I told her what defines trust for me, or if I can feel that a person is trustworthy, is the fact that they have my best interests in mind or at heart when they make decisions. Not to say that they are going to override what's best for them when they're making a decision, but do they consider me when they make a decision? And if I'm not considered, then I don't feel like that person is trustworthy, because I have to trust you with my heart as well as anything else that comes along with that. Trust you with my communication, my past, my hurts, my pains, and not just even in relationships, but just in everyday life. So for me, if that person is thinking about how this affects me or how this affects this relationship, then I feel like they can be trustworthy.
So I pulled up the actual definition of trust, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something.
Absolutely.
So
I agree.
from that, my definition that I, thought mine really wasn't so much a definition, but an example.
Yes.
Because, and I guess this really falls into what you're saying, because I come into my office and sit in my chair every day, I believe that it's going to hold me up, and it's
Okay.
because I've done it over and over, and it's been proven,
Okay.
it shows me that it can support me when I sit in it. Now, and even on that note, it's easy to break trust as well, though.
Absolutely.
Like I don't trust ladders. I've seen people fall off of ladders. I've seen situations.
Yes. And I gotta throw this in here,
Don't
y'all.
be funny.
I'm gonna be funny for a minute.
Don't be
I
funny.
have been married to this woman for 24 years. And I think 2 weeks ago was the first time that her foot ever placed itself on a step ladder. And when she told me, I said, wait a minute, how did you get that down from there? She said, I used a step ladder. I had to call my son because I was like, "Do you believe that your mom got on a step ladder?" Because she
Y'all got
does.
jokes.
Yes, we do. Because she doesn't
Got
trust them.
jokes.
But it's a good example. You can trust a chair that you sit in every day. However, you don't trust a step ladder that's made out of the same thing, does basically the same thing.
That I've seen people fall off of.
But because you've seen people fall. Okay. So that I guess could lead into more of the conversation.
Yeah.
What you see definitely affects how you trust people and your experiences. So I don't want to delve too deep because I think this is a multi episode conversation, but I would like today to just talk about what your definition of trust is and how you build it, as opposed to what we do when it's broken. Okay.
I think that's good.
So how do you build trust?
Wow. How do you build trust? I think that when you open yourself up enough to give a person an opportunity to prove themselves to you. Not like you are the end all, like somebody owes that to you. But I think that when you just open yourself up and allow somebody to begin to show you that they really do have your best interest at heart, then it helps you then to begin to develop a trust in a person.
Okay.
What you say?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think building trust, well, I'm going to take it from a male's point of view. I feel that men, and I know that most men will agree with me, I can bank on that we have to prove our trust much more. And because of that, it is hard to live up to that expectation sometimes. So I feel like if I'm constantly having to prove myself and I haven't given you a reason to mistrust me, is it worth it?
Well, I would hope in a marriage, yes.
Absolutely. I think it is.
Dating, you know, you may have to stop and think and say, is this something you're really willing to, you know, to keep working at? But in a marriage relationship, I think anything worth having is worth fighting for. I do believe that sometimes as ladies, especially as wives, that we talk more with our friends, and you hear so much more that can cause our own lenses to become cloudy when we come back and view our own things. And then not just to mention that the enemy will always try to make something seem off even when it really isn't.
Make something out of nothing.
Yeah, make something out of nothing. Good example, you know, good phrase. But you know, and I think in that, because of past hurts, because of past, it could be anything, abuse, mistrust, whatever, in previous relationships. I think it goes both ways, that we sometimes have a tendency to put off on the other person what somebody else has already done, which isn't fair.
It is not fair.
But I don't think it's always intentional either.
Right. And I don't think it's always intentional, but I do think that it happens a lot. And I think that's one thing in your marriage and in your relationship, you have to check yourself. And you have to look and say, am I questioning my spouse's actions or their integrity or their trust because of something they did or something that I've heard, or what is the reason behind it? You know, because I do, and I don't want to make this a man against woman thing whatsoever, but I feel as though sometimes when a man is accused or questioned, you know, it then puts up that wall. And it's because if I haven't done anything to shake your trust, if I haven't done anything to make you question me, and then you are questioning me, then that seed has been planted of discord in your marriage. So then it then develops into something worse. first.
And I know you said you don't want to make this male female, because that can go both ways.
Absolutely, it can.
It absolutely can go both ways. And I don't even know if you remember this situation.
Scared y'all.
I'm about to bring up something. We were early in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think Zari was born yet. So
Okay.
within the first 5 years or so of our marriage, or maybe right after Zari was born, I was doing laundry and went into your pants pocket, and you had stopped at the gas station and gotten gas, but there were 2 receipts in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking like, wait, what? Or something, whatever was going on. And long story short, what ended up happening was that the gas station accidentally charged you for 2 different pumps. And you hadn't even realized it. But just to show you the way the enemy can throw something up, was like, well, wait a minute. You got enough money, you can be paying for your gas and somebody else's? I
don't even remember that.
I know you don't, because it didn't like I made a big deal out of it, but it was a question, and but I trusted you.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you had never been unfaithful to me. You had never given me a reason not to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did investigate, because again, trust is easily broken. So I just needed to know. And once I had proof and knew what happened, then it was like no big deal, whatever. But just to show you how things can look off. But the question behind that was, should I have handled that? I didn't come to you accusing.
Mm-hmm.
I asked a question. And I think that makes a difference as well. When there's a trust issue or something that's questionable, does a person automatically come accusing, or do you come, pose a question to give your spouse or person, an opportunity to answer on that, though?
I think that's an excellent point.
I think so too. Thank you.
Well, I also want to bring up something that I said to my wife a long time ago, and see where the conversation goes. I once said to my wife that it is more important for your man to say that he trusts you before you're married, when you're dating, than it is that he say, I love you.
I remember that.
You remember that?
I do.
And the reason why, because men have up so many guards. We, just like anybody else, everyone has issues, but men have guards up. Men have walls up. Men go through things and women go through things on their job, through the day, but just how we are made, how we are built, how we were raised. Trust is very big to us. So if I trust you, then I'll open my heart to you. But if I don't trust you, you'll never get my heart. So that's why I always say that it's important that your man or your spouse trusts you first, more than the I love you. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, which I know you will, but I feel like a woman can put her heart into a situation even before trust is even developed.
I believe you're right. I do. I would agree with that statement.
Y'all put it on the books. She says she agreed. We agree all the time. It's okay.
Right. Since you got jokes tonight.
Like my uncle said, put it in the book. Put it in the book.
But I agree. I think that women are typically a lot more emotional. And so even though I think sometimes it's a bunch of red flags, I think that's where that phrase, love is blind, sometimes comes up, because there can be red flag after red flag after red flag. And because our emotions and our heart, is involved, that even though we know, and I know I won't say everybody, but I know I've seen situations with ladies where it's like, and why she's still dealing with him? Like, that's just as clear as the nose on her face that this, something's not right. But because her emotions are involved and because I love him, then a lot of times will overlook the foolishness. I think men overlook different things.
Oh, for sure.
But there are things men will overlook as well. It's different, but definitely I think that there have been times in the trust, department that some women will overlook. And eventually end up in a marriage or a relationship where she knows that her spouse is not being faithful and everything else, but she'll just still hold on to it just for the sake of having a man present.
Yeah. So if you have your man's trust, you build on that. It is such an important part of who we are, that just like communication and emotion is such a part of who you are, trust is so much a part of who we are. So yes, you can betray it. I want to say that for another episode, but we've got to continue to build and do exercises and do things that facilitate trust in your relationship. So being forthcoming is the biggest thing. I think so many men put themselves in bad situations and bad light just because we're not forthcoming. And the reason why we're not forthcoming is not always because we're trying to hide something, but truth of the matter, fear. It's just fear of what she may say, fear of what she may do, fear of how she may react, even if that thing was 100% innocent. Is it worth the battle? Is it worth World War V for me to say this thing, or do I keep it to myself? But then when you keep it to yourself and it comes up later, it is worse than World War V, because you got to communicate. If you're just upfront and explain the situation, you have to sometimes let the chips fall where they may. You know, if that's how you build trust in a relationship. What do you think?
And one thing, ladies, I'll put out as well, I know, again, because we communicate a little bit more, you know, that it's easy for me to have conversation with my best friend or my sister or whoever and just talking about my day and what's going on. But I also have to remember things that my husband shares with me. He has to trust me. So therefore, that conversation has to be between the two of us. Mm-hmm. That's not something I'm going to go back and just be like, well, this is blah, 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 what he said and blah, 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 what he did. No, that's the private, you know, side of our relationship, where again, he knows he can trust me because this is between me and him. That's number one. He knows it's not going to go any further. Then number two, he knows that I'm not going to judge him based on what he has shared with me. You know, if my husband comes to me in an intimate, you know, conversation and really is sharing from his heart, then I've learned that he's not coming looking for advice. He's not coming looking for what other, like he just wants, sometimes they want to talk things out as well. And when he does talk it out with me, he needs to know that this is a safe place, that his words will fall, that once they, you know, I'm not going to ever push this back in his face. I'm not going to ever throw it back up to be like, well, so, you know, I'm not going to do that to him. This is a safe place. And this is that intimate place. And I think it helps to build intimacy. If I can trust you, even as a spouse, if I can trust you, then it does, I believe, help build a level of intimacy. If I can sit and have a conversation with you, and I know that you're really diligently invested in what I'm saying, and this is something that's shared between me and you, I think it does help to build even a level of intimacy in the relationship, and that's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely necessary. One thing that she said that jumped out at me is men need a safe place. I don't think people value how emotional men really are. We are emotional as well. We just show our emotions differently. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. And going back to the trust and those different ways that you build trust, one of those ways that you destroy that is what she said, when you have those conversations with your sister, best friend, whatever, and somebody says something and something slips out, then that trust begins to get eroded. If that continuously happens, now I trust you to say everything that it is to your friends. So I still have trust, but it's in the wrong thing. I trust you to hurt me. If I do express a need, I express a vulnerability, because a lot of times men don't have a lot of places to express their vulnerable side. Y'all will express that with anybody that walks down the street. But a man is not going to do that.
You're exaggerating.
I am exaggerating, absolutely. But if you have that person, this is my person. And if I confide in her, if I'm vulnerable, if I cry, if she holds me, if whatever it is, but then you throw that in my face on a regular, then again, I now trust you, and you have now proven that you are not trustworthy. So I trust you to do what you always do, which means now I'm going to be reclusive. Now I'm going to pull back. Now I'm not going to tell the truth. Now I am going to hide things from you, because you can't be trusted with my heart. And it goes both ways, like we've said before. So we have to understand all of our actions and all of our interactions, they have repercussions. There's a cause and effect.
Now, this might be a question for another day, another time, another episode, but I'm going to put it on the table and ask. When trust has been broken, what can be done to help build that trust back up?
Ooh, Lord, that's a whole nother episode. But I will say that in order for trust to be rebuilt, you got to have faith. You have to have faith in God in order to have reconciliation and to rebuild trust. Because the one thing I understand as people and as individuals, what we do is we get amnesia when we're hurt. And we don't understand that we all have the ability to fall short. We all have the ability to hurt each other. We all have the ability to do great and wonderful, sweet things, as well as hurtful things to one another. So realizing that we're only human is the first step. We're all human. We all fall. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. That's the first thing. And then, is there a apology? Is there repentance? And when I say repentance, not the apology, I mean turning away from, changing the habit, changing the behavior of whatever it was that you did to break trust, to facilitate trust. And then I think that there has to be an excessive amount of communication and, for lack of a better word, dog and pony show. Because you have to, because now you have destroyed that trust. So you do have to put on, I hate to say it, a show, but you have to go above and beyond. It's not a show because it should be sincere, but you have to go above and beyond what you would normally do to start building those bricks back up in the trust.
I agree. And again, that goes both ways, whether male or female, wherever the mistrust is, even dealing in marriages. And I know that women can be unfaithful in marriages as well, and move outside of relationship of the marriage. But a lot more times you hear about it with men being unfaithful in a relationship. And there are a lot of times women who will say, I love my husband. I'm not willing to throw away the whole marriage because he made a mistake. But even though she lets him back in, it still takes time to build that trust back up. It still takes time for her to say, but we have to, as a woman, we can't just say, yes, I'm going to allow you to stay and I want to work on the marriage, but then throw it up in his face every day either, and that's a real delicate subject, because some women just say it's not worth it. If he wants the other woman, then let him go be with her and I'm done with it. But there are some women who still would say, it's a little bit of hope there. It's still some trust there that I trust that you love me enough that I'm willing to fight for this marriage, and to those ladies, I say to you, hold on. Continue to fight, continue to believe, continue to pray, and just keep building your marriage. You won't communicate, talk about it, because like I said, once that trust is broken, it's hard. Like I said, because if I ever sit in a chair and it breaks on me, we're going to have a conversation, because I don't know what that's going to look like again.
Absolutely. The amount of time it took to build that trust, it takes like 5 times
Or at least.
the time
At least.
and or the effort to rebuild it, And I think one thing that you said, is everyone has their own deal breakers. But one thing that I want to say to anybody is, before you do something that's going to break trust, you got to weigh your options.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said my definition are my best interests in your mind and in your heart when you make decisions. Is a decision that you're about to make worth destroying your relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Is a decision that you're about to make worth hurting and breaking and destroying your spouse? Is the decision you're about to make worth destroying you? Because potentially it could.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to weigh that. And that should be in your mind when you are making decisions that can dismantle the trust in your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think this was a good topic, and I definitely think it's probably some more we can add on to.
Yeah, next time I think I want to talk about rebuilding trust and what we can do to rebuild it and how to rebuild it and where God stands in that scenario, because without faith, you can't.
Yeah.
We serve a God of reconciliation. We serve a God of restoration in relationship. And if you don't have him as a part of that marriage, it's very hard to rebuild trust and maintain and reconcile.
But I'm going to throw this little quick plug in there. For the month of May, I know we have Mother's Day coming up, and I am we're getting ready to start working on building a panel for us to have for next month. So I can't announce who the panelists are as of yet, because I've not spoken with all of them yet. But with Mother's Day, one of the thoughts that came up to me is that a lot of times people automatically assume that you get married and then next comes the babies. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you have women who may have no desire to have children. You may have situations where she really does desire, but has not been able, her body has not been able to carry and bring forth the child. There are a lot of struggles with infertility in marriages, and it can make a woman feel that she's less than, I think, sometimes in that. And then you have women sometimes with, like I said, miscarriages and just a lot of things that come along with that. So I have some ladies in mind that I'll be reaching out to, and next month, that's going to be our topic on episode 5 in May. That's going to be our topic. I want to talk about what infertility and the next steps in marriage can look like for women. So I hope you all are excited. Of course, we'll start posting it, and we'll promote everything on our social media sites prior to. I said it right, didn't I? Ooh, don't expect it again. Gotcha. But that's what I'd like to talk about next month with a group of ladies. And we'll talk about that. And then we'll come back to the trust situation.
Absolutely. I know I say that word a lot. It's one of my favorite words. Absolutely. My son's favorite word when he was a kid was actually.
Actually. Yeah, that's what he said all the time.
Absolutely.
But also, ladies, wonder where he gets it from.
Yeah.
So ladies, also don't forget that each month we do Praying Wives. And what that is, it's a group of ladies. We're coming together. It's anybody that's interested in joining us. And we come together and we pray for marriages. We pray for our marriages. We pray for our spouses, because I'm a firm believer that God has to be in a marriage. We've been recently talking about the triangle. You have the husband, you have the wife, and then God has to be at the top of that triangle. And in that is communication with God. We're praying. We take time. We fast, and how you fast is 100% up to you. We have some people that go into 12 noon. We have some people that will fast for 24 hours from midnight to midnight. We have some people that may do the Daniel fast, and that's eating anything that God created naturally. So is no meats, but it's fruits and vegetables and nuts and things like that during that course of time that you're fasting. And then during that, each month I send out a devotional. And in that devotional, I'll give you specific scriptures and specific things that we're praying for that month. And we have testimonies that are coming out of it, where women are coming back to me, wives are coming back and saying, wow, this was so on point. I needed this month. My husband and I were in this situation, and then you sent this out, and wow, it has been so helpful. So with that, I encourage you to join us. And all you have to do is to you can send me a private message, even on Marital Motivation with the Mackies. You can send it to our email address, which I don't remember. What is it? Mackie's Marital Motivation. Help me out. Don't laugh.
Yes, Mackie's Marital Motivation at gmail.com. But it's also on our Facebook page, or you can hit the messenger, or you can hit it on Instagram. If I see anything about Praying Wives, that goes to her. And I teased at the first episode that we're doing something for the men. And next month, after the ladies present theirs, I will be rolling out something for you fellas. So yes, I applaud my wife. She has been diligent with this, and I think it is so necessary. And I think men, not that we need to step up, because we have already stepped up, but we need to show our families and show our wives what godly men do, how we act, how we reverence God, how we reverence our wives, and we're going to move forward with that. So awesome episode. I enjoyed the conversation today.
High five.
High five. I don't know. We might have to switch sides, because me and this patch.
I know. I'm sorry. We'll talk. Well, hopefully we won't be looking at the patch much longer. So
surgery's on the way. Surgery on the way. But anyway, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope we were able to sow a seed of wisdom into your marriage, pour into your marriage. Not that I hope, I know, because I know God is God, and I know that He wants every marriage to prosper, that He has put His hands on. And I believe that is what He has done, will do, and will continue to do.
Absolutely. So as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Don't forget to share,
please,
because somebody else needs to hear this. So don't forget to share, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Good night.